All right, my friends. With you said, please like and subscribe. It's your birthday. We'll get you a present today, everybody. You guys hear me okay? Right, perfect. The tree falling. Let me just say, can hear you? Or from Jim there, maybe we'll repair it. Oh, Elmo. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I am your host, Cliff Schechter, from the Cliff's Edge YouTube channel and the Blue Amp Substack. You should subscribe. We're here coming to you from somewhat rainy Cincinnati, the Queen City, the Radio City itself. You know, you all watch WKRP in Cincinnati. How are you? It's been a week, and a week is always sort of like a long time to not talk to some of you folks. Some of you check in on Substack. I hope more of you will. And maybe in the near future, I'll get a chance to do some more Tuesdays. Looking forward to that. But you know, we're getting some stuff done, and we're moving forward, and that gives me more time to chat with all of you. So, you know, lots of crazy out there going on. No lack of that ever. But I thought I might talk to you a little bit, have a little bit of a rant about Donald Trump's, what is it? Bleach blonde, butch built badly. No, bleach blonde, badly built bill. I need Jasmine Crockett. Where is she when I need her? Okay. You may have seen today that Elon Musk is out against the bill. Elon Musk. And, you know, a couple of years ago, you might have said to yourself, hey, Elon Musk, the billionaire, is against that bill. A guy that's built this amazingly successful car company, a guy that has this rocket company. And you would have thought, because the tech press is the Tapper Tribune, if you will, that it must all be true, because myth creation is a beautiful thing. And you would have been like, all right, this makes a lot of sense. Right? I mean, if he's saying Donald Trump's bill sucks, it sucks. But the problem is Donald Trump's bill sucks, but not because Elon Musk says it sucks. Elon Musk is the guy, you may remember, who took a incredibly successful car company and literally uniquely found a way to insult every one of his customers. It's like, how can I piss them off the most? I think I'll support a modern day Nazi party in Germany. Hey, I may even do a Sieg Heil for fun. I'll come out in favor of Donald Trump. I'll fund Donald Trump. I'll make little insinuations about how I cheated for Donald Trump and changed numbers for Donald Trump. I'll do all of that. And all during that time, I'll take over Twitter. I'll hang out with a bunch of weird, freaky incels online, and they'll be my best buds. And I'll insult every single person who buys an electric car. So you may have seen yesterday, electric cars down in Western Europe. I'm sorry, let me say that again. Tesla's down in Western Europe, 49%. Not electric cars. That market's just blossoming, but not Tesla, not the one that was the leader of the pack. You have done fucked your own company so badly. You're Enron, baby. You're Philip Morris. Maybe you should change your name to Altria. That's the kind of brand damage we're talking. So wonderful. And then, of course, there's, hey, your bill is going to create a larger deficit. Well, that would, you know, have a lot more credibility if it didn't come from the guy that created the Doge department, which we've seen numerous analyses is going to cost us billions of dollars. I know it's crazy, but there's these weird notions when you're not a weird, just single-minded fool, and you actually can think in a little bit of sort of multi-dimensions about how sometimes actions can prevent bad things from happening in the future. For example, give somebody preventative medicine for free, as Obamacare does. And you don't just wait till they show up in the hospital where everything is 10 times as expensive. They don't have insurance. And guess who ends up footing the bill for that? They'll go into medical bankruptcy, destroy their lives, and then we all end up paying for it, which I'm sure many a MAGA has fallen into that trouble. They are right now, as their farms and their ranches and their 401ks and their jobs and everything else are disappearing because they voted for this chud. But again, it brings you back to cutting all of the things that we do. USAID, by the way, one of the most successful programs in soft power. Reagan was behind it. Clinton was behind they all supported because they got, give kids shots so they don't get malaria or treatments and feed them in all the other countries. You create goodwill. This isn't genius stuff here. It's not genius stuff like creating a rocket that won't launch and just sort of goes and crashes into the ground every 5 seconds. Figuring out how to rip off the government and convince them to give you subsidies for that piece of crap. Bring your group of incel 14-year-olds trying to reach puberty into the U.S. Treasury Department and breaking in and stealing our information. That kind of stuff, allegedly. Okay, so, of course, he is criticizing this bill, but he has no credibility to. And he's actually right for once. This bill sucks. It's going to destroy, what is it going to cut? 280 billion or whatever it was. I'm losing numbers at this point because there's so many cuts to Medicare. I think it's 580 actually. It's going to destroy Medicaid. Again, preventative measures, which will cost us more money. That's not what Elon cares about, though. I'm sure there's other things in there he doesn't like they're spending money on. But who the hell cares? Like what the overall analysis is from that jack in a box. In the end, he's shown he can't manage a company. He doesn't understand government, yet tried to cut things, and it's going to cost all of us more money. Donald Trump, again, crushing Medicaid, crushing Medicare. This, by the way, will disproportionately hurt MAGAs. So good voting, folks. Snap. Children are going to starve. I wrote a piece about this at Substack. Again, I hope you will subscribe. I hope you'll check out the Substack, blueamp.co. This isn't really hard. If kids don't eat, they starve. When you change a program and say, hey, you know how we said if you had somebody under the age of 18, you get SNAP benefits and you don't have to work? Well, we now just change that to under the age of 7. I'm not kidding you. Yeah, your 6-year-old. I'm going to come up with this weird concept that your 6-year-old may not be able to go to school someday because they might be sick and you can't work. I'm going to come up with another weird concept. There's this thing called summer where 6-year-olds aren't in school. Who's paying for them to have somebody to fucking watch them when their parents aren't? Or do you just want an army of 6-year-olds running around on their own doing whatever? I mean, it's ludicrous, the cuts in this bill. This bill is horrific. It obviously gives Trump a way to ignore subpoenas and things of that nature when he's found in contempt of court. They snuck that in there because who wouldn't want to sneak an anti-constitutional attacking American democracy provision into a freaking budget? And there's more. I mean, obviously, we could sit here and go line by line. This thing is the biggest piece of trash I have seen outside of a flaming, fiery garbage heap. It's ridiculous. Outside of like a Cybertruck where the panels fall off because somebody glued them on. Like when I was 7 and I glued panels onto my little toy Millennium Falcon. So that's what we have. But the fun part is Elon Musk is criticizing Trump. And as we all know, Donald Trump does not take well to that. So those two should be fighting it out soon. I can't wait. I mean, maybe Elon will back down. Maybe Trump will. Maybe Vladimir Putin will just pull the strings on both of them and tell them to shut up. Maybe Peter Thiel will get involved like he did in putting the guy that can't order donuts properly in as our vice president. Who knows? But in the end, I just thought I would rant about the fact that this schmuck, this apartheid fool, came out for once, whatever his reasoning, and said something that made sense, which is this bill is horrific. But he, if the Elon of 5 years ago had done that, we all would have been like, we would have been fooled by the tech press back then and said, oh, okay, see, that smart billionaire, the visionary guy is saying it. Whereas now our response is just that guy, the one who has like 47 children with 16 different women. Yeah, that weirdo, right? The one that comes out on stage and jumps in the air like 3 feet high, like he's a toddler. The guy that likes to walk around with flamethrowers and chainsaws and is honestly cannot converse with another human. Sounds like he's literally speaking like Hal in Space Odyssey. I mean, he has no credibility anymore because personally he is a dunderhead. He's blown up all of his companies in an almost purposeful fashion. It's so stupid. And as we said, there's just the fact that he, likes to hail Hitler. And I personally don't tend to trust somebody that does that up on a big stage like the RNC. So again, good job, Elon. You've reminded us all what a schmuck you are. You have also reminded us how terrible this bill is, and we will go and listen to other people about how bad it is. But make sure to keep criticizing and saying how disappointed you are in Donald Trump before we go crying back to him in the Oval Office. We get another audio of you crying about your car company falling apart. Make sure to criticize Trump more because Trump really likes that, and I'm sure that we'll all appreciate the results. And yeah, there you go. I'm done with, let's call that Cliff's Note for today. I'm going to bring in the one, the only, the great, the Emmy Award-winning David Schuster to see if he can rub some of that Emmy Award-winning magic in this broadcast and bring it above the level of where people are using somewhat.
I love the ripping on Elon Musk, and I also love that Elon Musk is having his moment now in criticizing Donald Trump. I just read, Cliff, that like Tesla sales are down even more now in Europe and Canada and all sorts of other places. Like, just I thought the Tesla sales would be bad in February when he was destroying government. Now it's even worse.
Yeah, it's maybe it's a lagging. It's like press, like all sort of opinion, right? It lags a little bit behind. So even stuff he did a month ago, people are still learning about or whatever. But yeah, I looked that up. That that was earlier in the little rant, but I wasn't fair to him. It's not down half. I said it was the sales have been cut in half. It's only down 49% in Western Europe. So that's if we want to be honest, unlike Donald Trump, the exact number is 49% in Western Europe, of course, is the biggest electric car market. I think that in California, and he's way down there too. So, I mean, I was saying, David, and toss it in here. I mean, during my little fun rant there, but I'm like, do you change your name to Altria? What did Enron change their name to? I mean, that's the kind of brand damage. Like I've said that. I'm not claiming I'm an expert, but like in grad school, part of taking messaging and communications was taking some marketing classes, in the business school, because that all plays into this. And I mean, there are some things you just can't come back from. Like you have to change the name. I mean, I think even if he walks away, it doesn't matter. Tesla, that name, just like the name Enron, just like the name Philip Morris, it's destroyed forever.
Well, and that actually is a great bridge or segue to what I was going to tell you that I just saw a few moments ago. And that is Donald Trump apparently within the last hour or two flipped out in the Oval Office because he had reporters in for his executive orders. And one of the reporters, I think from CNBC, asked him about his reaction to the word taco, which is what Wall Street is now referring to. Trump always chickens out. And at first Trump was like, Trump, what? And he didn't hear it. And he said, chickens out. And then it took him a moment. And then he realized what was being said. And he went bananas. And I almost think that he says, that's a nasty question. Don't you ever ask that question? Because he knows that for Trump, that this is something that can stick. And we've seen it repeatedly. I like to refer to it as the red light, green light approach to tariffs, or on again, off again. But for Wall Street to say Trump imposes 145%, then quickly chickens out on China, whatever it is. And so they know not to trust Donald Trump. And I almost get the sense that Trump realizes, and he's like the brilliant one when it comes to coming up with these monikers or terrible nicknames for little Marco or low energy Jeb or crooked Hillary, whatever it is, that now it's Taco Trump, and he knows that may stick.
I think it will. I mean, obviously alliterative, so you got that. That's always good. It's a couple letters, and it sounds itself out into a word you're used to saying. So it gets pretty. I mean, as branding goes, it's good stuff. And then just look, it works. Like we've said it here. I've written about it. I've talked about it. Like the thing that gets me is when even somebody who believes in Trump's tariffs, who comes to me and is like, oh, well, he's going to reorder the economy. They've been taking too much from us. And I'm like, I don't want to sit here again and have to explain Bretton Woods and NATO and all the things we did where we wanted to pay more for our security. There was an investment in that, but we'll leave that aside for a second. Like when people come like, he's going to reorder it so they won't take advantage of us anymore. I'm like, no, he's not, because first of all, he won't anyhow, because he won't do what you think he's going to do. But let's throw that aside. He'll never stick to it. I mean, how many times do you need to see the same thing? over and over and over, Lucy, with the football. Like, I don't understand. He never sticks to it. It's a combination of market manipulation, probably for insider trading purposes. Can't prove that, so we'll allege that, but I don't know. But we know who Trump is. But the other thing is like, it's a domination play. That's all. Everything to him is a zero-sum contest because daddy didn't love him. He was spare parts. And he's been searching for this admiration and love his whole life, which is why it particularly stings when the Bruce Springsteens, when big stars rip the crap out of him. He can't stand it because he always thought he was going to be among those people. But in the end, like, he chickens out every time. And I mean, and these guys said it like, well, we've had presidents before we didn't think were good for, I read that article and I was thinking of doing a rant on that. I chose this instead. But, that there have been people who were like, well, there are, certain presidents not great for the markets. But there's never been one before where they've actually bet based upon what they know when he says something that he won't do. In other words, they wait for him to say the tariff thing. They wait till the certain stocks inevitably crash and they jump into them right away because they know he's going to back out and they're going to go flying back up.
And what I love about, chickening out and Taco is that there's sort of two elements to this, right? I mean, the element you're talking about in terms of Donald Trump has never had any credibility. And we've seen that play out over and over. And he has no credibility now when he talks about, oh, I'm not going to cut Medicaid. I'm only going to make it better. Or I'm not going to cut Social Security or whatever he says, he's got no credibility. But what's so amazing about chickening out is that this gets to the other thing you were pointing out, and that is Donald Trump is all about power. And when Donald Trump, he sees himself, his role is to both entertain people, but also to dominate people, to be powerful. When you say that somebody is chickening out, then you're getting to their own sort of ego that maybe this guy is really not so powerful, that he's not so strong, that he's a weakling. And so it sort of has the double-edged sword, right? It's Donald Trump has no credibility and he's not the powerful person he keeps trying to promote. And I think that really bothers him.
Oh, I think that's totally right. And I mean, again, the tariff stuff, the going back and forth on that wasn't there, but there was so much there. I mean, from bone spurs, to him hiding in a bunker when there were protesters outside of the White House and not wanting to go out to that World War I festival or memorial, because his hair would get wet. We just imagine what Republicans would do with that. And of course, I thought of every ad I could write and everything I could do. I mean, the thing about Trump is that he's a fake tough guy. Yeah. You need to expose people like that for who they are. He's a classic act really tough because deep down you're this weak, wimpy, you're a guy that inherited $400 million and found a way to lose it in casinos. I mean, we should have been there, honestly, just calling the man flaccid constantly with its little implications, especially after what Stormy Daniels said, and about his flaccid management of companies, of casinos, his flaccid, handling of government, prosperity and getting us into job losses, whatever. And just if we had stayed on that, a message going after him for how weak he was, he would have had the dual benefit of that's one of the things that's attractive about him to some of these young men who voted for him. And we could have maybe undone a lot of that by exposing who he was. And second of all, as we all know, politics is psychological warfare, and you're dealing with a crazy person here. You would have set him off constantly. Again, we're getting better, but I've still got my gripes. The Democratic Party still has not learned to message its way out of a box, has not learned to have a unifying narrative that where everybody is repeating with various message points underneath about what you're trying to get across that are value judgments, not just individual policies on paper, but the values of things that, the emotional things people judge about people. And that's, policies are connected to that. And we should connect his policies to how weak he is now, and how awful he is. But we just don't do it. And we're still not doing it. We're better. We have some individuals doing it. I just wish there'd almost be a little bit of I hate using this word in these times, but a little bit of a coup within the Democratic Party, and the some of the folks that know how to speak up would take over and start messaging all the time for us, because Chuck Schumer ain't doing it.
Well, and you mentioned the word, Trump being crazy. I mean, for, most Americans who are not paying much attention to Donald Trump on a day in and day out basis, they may see highlights or clips here and now. But I think for all of us who are looking at his stuff on a daily basis, he is getting crazier and more of a lunatic literally by the day. And you can see it in his social media postings. He posted something on True Social the other day
Memorial Day.
Yeah, about Memorial Day, that he talked about scum, and he talked about his war on Harvard, and how come Harvard won't say that 31% of their students are from foreign countries? Well, actually, Harvard does say that, and Trump officials had said that just days before Trump claimed that this was somehow a surprise. And then he writes about Harvard's endowment, $53 million, 0.00000. It's actually $53 billion. So there's Donald Trump, the savvy businessman who doesn't get the right word in terms of billion versus million. I mean, he is literally, and then just, I was, mentioning a moment ago how he melted down in the Oval Office. The other part about him freaking out over the word chicken is that he went on this bizarre, he was like rambling. It's like that scene from, I'm forgetting the movie where, they're in the psychiatric ward. I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And there's Jack Nicholson just sort of looking at, the crazies, and everyone's sort of looking at him. And that's what, Donald Trump was rambling, and there's Jeanine Pirro standing over his shoulder, who's like, what the hell's going on? Where is he going? And she's like,
I'm drunk, and I still don't understand it. And she just drank an entire box of wine.
There's that.
She couldn't even, no, you're right. And you've done some stuff, because obviously you create some great videos. You create some for our Substack and YouTube channel and everything, and talked about, how I love it. It's almost like the Fox News mop-up game, like where the people at Fox scramble because they're like, oh crap, he said some crazy shit again. Everybody get together, figure out how we're going to justify this. What are we going to do? Cut to commercial, like it's insane.
Yeah. Even, it's funny is even on Fox, it is so Trump's mental decline is so obvious that even to the Bill Hemmers and the John Roberts and some of the people who are not known for being Trump critics, even they can't resist, saying, well, wait a second. And so you can always count on, Fox and Friends and Bret Baier and some of the other shows to sort of essentially march in lockstep with Donald Trump and excuse away whatever he says. But even now you're seeing a growing number of Fox hosts who are saying, well, wait a second, what do you mean Donald Trump claims he has all these deals? He doesn't have all these deals. What deals does he have? He's got sub deals with China and UK, and that's it. And today, Trump just announced or said that in response to the chicken, I'm going to have to do a video on this whole chicken comment, because then Trump said, well, I went to Saudi Arabia and we went to the Middle East and we got $16 trillion in investment in the United States. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe my math is off, but I feel like the entire GDP of the United States is what, like $25 trillion a year, something like that. So you're talking, and
good to know Saudi Arabia has got us covered.
Is like $200 billion. And so Trump originally said that Qatar said they pledged $1.2 trillion in the United States, which is 6 times their GDP. Then it went up to $5 trillion. And now in this one, he's talking about $16 trillion, and Joe Biden didn't get us anything. And then he talks about how America was dead 6 months ago, but now we are hot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's crazy.
That's the thing. Well, we're all lucky because, Jake Tapper wrote a book about it, so we'll know all about. Oh, right, he didn't write about him. Yeah, but and that honestly, that is why I get so angry and let's call it animated, but I do about what about corporate media, because this is where they fail. Right. Because you just brought it up, and I know plenty of these types of folks. I'm sure you do too. The ones that don't pay close attention to politics, and they don't really get how crazy Trump is, because the media isn't telling them, and Democrats aren't messaging it constantly. So something like that Memorial Day thing, about it. I know about it. I bet most of the people here who are in this live stream here commenting saw what he put out there. But I promise you the vast majority of Americans have no idea. And that's because it's the media's job to tell people so they know, because that was why they were put in the Constitution, to theoretically help protect democracy and free speech, all of that. And they won't do it because they've got other interests in mind. And then we don't message it because we're either not on the same page or too nice, or I don't know what it is. I still struggle with the concept of why they can't get this together. He's nuts. And if they'd basically said he was off his rocker and then just used the evidence, they wouldn't have to create anything. He gave them every day during the campaign. It would have, again, you would have had a narrative, and he would have helped reinforce it with all the stuff he did. But instead, they didn't do that. And Also, when you bring something up constantly, you force it into the media conversation. If we were to go, our guys went on the Sunday shows and nightly news, whatever, in various shows during the day, and that was their talking point constantly. It would force it into the media's conversation, but we also don't do that. So it just drives me nuts. It's like, it's right there, but so many people don't know. I've brought up a few of these types of things he said or done to people I know, and they have no idea. Like the sharks and batteries thing, a guy I know who's a Republican, I was telling him about, he's like, what are you talking about? I mean, he literally ranted about sharks and batteries at how many different rallies? 3 of them, 4 of them, and they don't know because no one's telling them.
Yeah. And I almost wonder, for the media, and this is something that I will always sort of wonder, but it was so, even when, Joe Biden was still running, there was a lot of piling on Joe Biden, right? That he's slow. He's not taking questions from the press. Look at his frailty. And it didn't feel like there was the same level of angst or a sort of microscope on Donald Trump's bizarre, crazy things that were making no sense. And Donald Trump, and some people say, well, the reason is because Donald Trump showed more energy. Okay, well, sure. Sometimes crazy people may have more energy, but that doesn't make them less crazy. And wouldn't you rather have a guy
more dangerous?
Yeah, wouldn't you rather have a guy who's like keeping things, keeping the economy going, who's not, pissing off our allies, who's not, causing more issues around the globe, who's not hurting the economy, who's not polluting the air? Wouldn't you rather have that, even if the guy's a little bit frail, as opposed to somebody who's total wackadoodle, who you can't believe a word he says, and he's turning all the institutions inside out? And so I almost wonder if Joe Biden was perhaps like an easier target for some of the mainstream media because they knew that Joe Biden would not respond to them the way that Donald Trump has responded to the media of the last several years. And then as Donald Trump threatens to sue you, and he actually does sue you, and he tries to drag your name through the mud, and he encourages his supporters to literally threaten your life. Whereas the Democrats and Joe Biden, they may be angry that the media is criticizing Biden, but they're never going to encourage violence against the media. And so the media feels like, oh, I can show my bona fides to the Republicans by piling on Joe Biden.
That's exactly right. And my problem is, look, we don't want to ever become them in that way, right? I mean, we have to solve stuff by ballot. So that's one that's hard to figure out how to deal with. I mean, we could enforce terroristic threat type laws and actually arrest people, including the president, but he has immunity or something because somebody made that up, like they've made up Citizens United and the rest. But the problem here is, it's not that. It's like, I don't even think we would need to do the threatening violence, which I wouldn't do. We would just need Democrats to be as aggressively, critical of the media as we are, as you and I are, and many people in here are. I mean, there is simply no reason why, and as Republicans fake being, or they're angry at them or they really are because they actually here and there tell the truth about them. You know what I mean? I mean, we should be. That's why I've made it a mission to just turn Jake Tapper's name into a joke and go after him constantly. Like I don't understand people that don't react that way when it's your democracy that's on the line. I'm not trying to get anybody harmed. I'm very clear about that. I don't want violence against anybody, but I am also very clear that Jake Tapper should not have a career in mainstream media, in corporate, anywhere. Put him on an entertainment channel. Let him host Inside Edition or something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, in the end, what I can't stand is on our side, they should be afraid of, in the same way they are of Trump, of what we might say back to them, of losing access, because if they prove themselves not to be real journalists, you're not abrogating the First Amendment. I mean, and I brought this up. This is one of the things that's always enraged me about Tapper, is that when the Obama people tried doing some of that and saying Fox wasn't real media and pushing them back in the press room, was it not giving them a front row seat or whatever it was, Jake Tapper actually came out and said, we can't allow you to attack, quote, our sister station like that. I will never forget that. I mean, what a bunch of shit that is.
Well, and that was also at a time when I think Jake Tapper was at ABC, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, Ed Henry, who had been at CNN and was the president of the Radio, Television, or White House Correspondents Association, whatever it is.
What happened to Ed Henry? I can't remember. What happened to Ed Henry?
Ed
I feel like a
Henry,
few
and he
things
took a
happened
very
there.
strong stand against the Obama White House for trying to take away the Fox seat. And lo and behold, 6 months after Ed Henry stood up for Fox News and that they needed to keep their seat in the White House press briefing, Ed Henry leaves CNN, and where does he go? Fox News, where he
Right.
then proceeds to allegedly sexually assault, rape, whatever words you want to use,
Win the
his
Roger Ailes
colleagues.
Award for
So
judicial.
I almost sense that maybe Jake Tapper saw what game Ed Henry was playing to get from CNN to Fox, and there's Jake Tapper trying to get from ABC to someplace else, and maybe Tapper was trying to make himself marketable. Perhaps if he wasn't going to go to CNN, maybe he might go to Fox and look at the tens of millions of dollars that Ailes was throwing around at talent there. So I think in Jake Tapper's mind, it was all about his opportunity, and it was not about, and this gets to a point that you've made repeatedly about Jake, it's not about actually serving the public and actually informing and enlightening the public. It's about what is good for Jake Tapper.
Right. And again, there's propaganda and there's news. And there are countries, they're the ones that are either thriving or at least they're doing better than we are right now in terms of being democracies in Western Europe and other places that in their law have absolute free speech protections, but will not allow disinformation and propaganda to be equal to information. And we just don't want to seem to do it. I mean, Obama was taking a step there, and that was an important step and one that other Democrats. Doesn't mean you don't go on Fox. There, there may be a couple % of the audience you can reach. I mean, don't go on there if you're going to go on and be weak and play the wimpy Democrat. But if you can go on there and show some strength and kick some butt and point out some truths, sure, go for it. You might win over a few people, right? I'm all for that. I'm all for going on a place like Joe Rogan and showing who we are. But to me, there's why would you treat Fox? Why would you call Fox as an entity anything other than what it is? I mean, they say everything in the world is partisan. They've gone after judges appointed by Trump, Reagan, Bush as Democratic and liberal, because they've come out with actual judicial decisions that against Trump. And yet here we have this organization that literally was put together by a huge Democratic donor, Republican donor in Rupert Murdoch, and run in Roger Ailes by a guy that did press work for Nixon and Reagan and George H.W. Bush. And it's like, it's the easiest connection to make in the world. And we should have been saying for 20 years now, the Fox propaganda network, again, messaging. If you said that stuff constantly, then I'm not saying you don't allow them to broadcast. You just make sure it's clear to everybody who they are. And you don't give them access. They don't deserve interviews. If they're going to lie about you and they are just propaganda, they're not really news. And again, this, you do have to, there's a fine line here. I'm not saying anybody who criticizes you. There are plenty of justified criticisms of Joe Biden. And there are reasons to question after that debate performance why he looked so frail. So again, I'm not sitting here like, oh, you must only go after Republicans. But when you take something like that so out of proportion to the crazy guy standing across Joe Biden, who just was spouting lie after lie after lie, craziness after crazy, the one outlet, the only one, which is why I told people all the time, get rid of the New York Times, Washington Post, whatever, and go to this one, was the Philadelphia Inquirer. They called on Donald Trump to get out of the race after that debate because they said the unbelievable way in which he tried to bully, the constant lies, the conspiracies, the whatever, that he was unworthy of the office and he shouldn't, and that's the thing. They put it in context. Didn't mean they didn't criticize Biden at all and ask questions about, yeah, he did look kind of frail. What was going on there? But they put it in the proper context, whereas all these other people just dove on Biden and let Trump skate.
Yeah.
And that pisses me off, frankly.
By the way, I got something else that'll piss you off about Jake Tapper.
Cool. I do better work here when I'm pissed.
So it's sort of an interesting story. I was thinking back about sort of the Jake Tapper stories that I have, and one that stands out that I haven't really said to many people, but back in 2004, I was a correspondent, MSNBC, NBC. I was covering, the presidential campaign in 2004, and I believe we were trying to get to Iowa, and there was a flight, or maybe we're coming from Iowa trying to get back to DC, whatever it was, and there was a connection through Chicago. And because of weather, and there were a group of journalists on this plane, because of weather, the flight was canceled, I think from Iowa to Chicago or Chicago to Iowa, whatever it is. And so there were a couple of ABC News producers, including a woman I was dating at the time. And they're like 4 or 5 of us decided, well, let's rent a car together and drive from Iowa to Chicago, Chicago to Iowa, whatever it is. That's fine.
Road trip.
A road trip. So it was me and these 4 young women. Now they were all in their 20s, and one of them I was dating at the time, and there were a couple of her cute friends. And so, mostly from ABC, and I think one from another network, CBS, whatever it is. Well, at one point in the midst of this road trip, I decided, hey, let's have a little fun. Let's call Jake Tapper, your colleague. And they're like,
God.
Okay. And I had Jake's number because he and I had sort of been friendly from the McCain campaign in 2000. So I call up Jake and I'm like, Jake, I'm here in a car with a couple of your girlfriends from ABC News. And there's dead silence. And he's like, what are you talking about? And so then I'm like,
oh, no, that's the moment where you're like, maybe I shouldn't have made.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said it. So one of the women that's in the car with me, she turns beet red. No. And I'm like, okay, obviously there was something going on between Jake and this ABC News producer, whatever. The next time I saw Jake, he was really pissed at me. He said, don't ever do that. Don't ever put me on the spot like that. And I was like, hey, we're just sort of having fun. If I was just sort of joking around that here I am with a bunch of your female colleagues and Jake's hair and whatever. But clearly it resonated with him. It hit a sensitive spot with him. So on top of all the other issues that people may have with Jake Tapper, if people want to date their colleagues, it's up to them. It's not, it's not something that I would normally do. I dated colleagues at other news organizations, but there was something going on. And this was before Jake got married. He was a single guy, whatever. But he was really, really sensitive about a sort of a prankish, trolling kind of phone call about his female colleagues.
That is awesome. See, guys, this is what you get if you subscribe to blueamp.cl, our Substack, or Cliff's Edge, our YouTube, where we just broke 120,000 subscribers. What you get is inside stories about some crazy stuff. Because, man, I can only imagine it wasn't as crazy as the earlier era, that people like Jack Germond wrote about. But I can only imagine some of those trips and carpooling and buses and flights and just the crazy stuff that you guys, because I saw it on the other side from the campaign side. And I mean, there's stories I can tell to this day. I mean, I had a campaign manager who campaign I was on in 2002 where I won't go into the details there because this isn't somebody who I dislike, but kept at kidney stones and kept refusing to get them, treated. And finally, because he didn't want to miss time on running the campaign. So he was taking morphine. And one time was all morphined up and told me a story. I mean, this is actually kind of horrible about how he had hit somebody with his car once and then just kept going. And I had to sit there with that. And be like, what do I do? Because you also don't know if that's real, right? Yeah. Because he was telling me at least numerous other stories that were clearly fake, that I knew were fake. So it's sort of like, what do you do? I can't go. That's not enough that this guy that was out of his skull was telling me this. It's horrific if it's true, but as I said, told me at least 2 or 3 things that were provably false. So what do you do with that except for not know what to do ever? And there you go. I mean, these are, again, sorry, I didn't mean to, I feel like I kind of ruined the mood because what you said was funny. What I said was kind of horrible. But, there were, let me tell you about the time I actually got arrested in Kentucky for being
let's hear about it.
New York.
Yeah, let's hear that.
I've told that one before. I went back to my old school. They invited me back to get up and speak. I went to Grace Church School in New York City, small Episcopalian, very liberal-minded school. And my first grade teacher, here's a fun one, her name was Meg Duchovny, Mrs. Duchovny, and she had a son named David. And he did some things in Hollywood.
That David Duchovny, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't David Duchovny. I mean, he was, but he wasn't at the time. He was trying to make it in Hollywood when I had his mom as a first grade teacher. I think he's about 8 years older than me or something like that. By the time I think I graduated from there, because Grace Church only went up to the 8th grade. They now have a high school, but at the time, at that point, I think he had started to kind of make it, but I don't think he'd hit the X-Files yet. So it hadn't blown up yet. But what happened was in Kentucky was I was out, of course, people are on a campaign drinking too much because that's like the oldest cliche in the book. And I didn't have a car because I could walk from where I lived in Kentucky to the campaign headquarters. And somebody offered me, a friend offered me a ride back to my place, because we were out at a bar that was further away. Now, what do? You've had too much to drink, don't have a car. Uber doesn't exist at the time. You can't hail a cab on the streets of Louisville, which anybody who's been there. It's not like New York City or Philly.
Getting a horse.
Exactly. I probably would have more luck finding a donkey, I think. And so I did what I thought the responsible thing was this friend of mine, she offered to give me a ride back. Well, I asked her numerous times, are you sober? And she said she was. And all I could do was believe that what she said, because it's not like I could tell the time. So we're driving back, and I swear within 2 blocks of my place, the police stop us. I'm in the passenger seat, mind you. And they come forward and try to make her walk the line, which she can't. So they're arresting her. And now they're like, what do we do with him? I'm like, what do we do with him? I'm in the passenger seat. So
can't do anything with the guy in the passenger seat.
So, right. So, well, you can, because if you ever want to know what this country, and particularly, sadly, states like Kentucky did to Black residents, I'm sure all the time, and other people, is you put laws in the book that really can be interpreted however you want. Loitering, for example. I mean, anybody can be loitering, right? Well, they had a law in the books, I swear to you, in the state of Kentucky that probably produces more bourbon, produces bourbon in the way that Russia produces vodka and drinks it. And they had a law called alcoholic intoxication, which meant they could have arrested everybody in Kentucky that night. And I was in the passenger seat, so they were like, well, we're going to have to take you into the, we're going to have to take you into the station. I'm like, why? I didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, well, let me see your license. I don't know. Schechter is a name that it can be German Catholic, can be German Jewish. They don't always know, but they did know the license was from New York. That part they knew. And they, they take me out there, whatever. And the worst part of all this is I'm like, what should I have done? The bar was closing, it was 2 a.m. If I were walking in the streets, you'd consider that to be dangerous, drunken in public and, whatever. If I drove, that would be really bad. I did what I thought was the most responsible thing. And instead, they used this ridiculous law against me that I think had been enforced like 6 times that year. And these guys took me in like I was a freaking criminal. And if you ever want to sort of understand people who complain about police, and I'm not trying to compare like what happened to me, just let's be clear, innocent Black men have been shot and women and all sorts of people murdered. So I'm not saying, just the understanding of the power these guys have over you. Like they handcuffed my hands behind my back, threw me in the back of the car. You're completely powerless. They took me, they took me into the drunk tank at the station, got my picture taken, all of that. And I had to spend a night in the drunk tank for having legally exercised my right to drink as at the time, 30-year-old, 29-year-old in the state of Kentucky, because they would not let me in. And the other part was we were like 2 blocks from where I lived at that time. I'm like, can you guys give me a ride back? And they're like, no, we're not allowed to do that. Can you let me walk back? No, we can do it. I'm like, I've got the keys here. I can show you that it opens the door. Like, well, how can you prove it? You've got a New York license. I'm like, it'll be my stuff in there. They just wanted to arrest me. And it turned out somebody, I don't remember who, knew somebody high up in the Fraternal Order of Police, somebody on our campaign called them, who called the officer and found out, yep, he was just trying to fill a quota and didn't want to bother with me. Just was easier just to arrest me. And so it was expunged and all of that. And I didn't have to pay the fine they gave me, but I got to spend a night, about 7, 8, 9 hours on a bench in a drunk tank. And that was a fun experience. So when they those little things
how many other prisoners were with you?
They separated it, thankfully, on both sides of this desk where there were cops with women on one side and men on the other side. In the drunk tank room, there were probably at least 50 people, I would say.
Oh, my God.
You had to find like a little corner of a bench to literally lie down. I mean, I tried not to because I didn't want to go to sleep. I maybe slept a half hour. Obviously, I didn't think someone was going to do something to me in a big room with cops in there. But like,
hey,
this is what I went through, and I think
welcome to the drunk tank, Mr. New Yorker.
Yeah. Why? Look who we have here.
You're a handsome young feller.
We have ourselves a New York Jew. I think he's been a little uppity in his behavior. And I don't like how he has behaved ever since the days of Jesus. So I think I'm going to take him and put. Sorry, I love doing that accent. And so I went back to Grace Church, my school, and they're like, they had like this, this beat kind of vibe, like, coffee house vibe, where they would do this thing at night, like Grease Church After Dark, and they'd invite back alumni who they thought, were people that would tell interesting stories. And I was a writer, obviously, and had been on TV and whatever. And so I went back and I told the whole story, which I think I still had there. It was like 30 years later, and one of my teachers was still there, who I think appreciated it, and other ones. I'm like, yep. So those things, whenever they send those things around, like 2 points for skydiving and 2 points for this and that and the other thing, like, I always get the jail points, which I think a lot of people don't get,
You got some street cred on that.
Right, man. Exactly. I mean, but what was good, the good thing about that, and really much better thing about the 8 years, some of the, honestly, the best stuff I've ever been a part of, that I spent on the board of the Innocence Project here in Ohio, is that you experience it personally, and then you see the people that were railroaded, threatened, their families threatened so they confessed to things they never did. Almost, I mean, not all Black, but vast majority of them Black. But there are a couple. There are a white working class guy who's the nicest guy in the world, who had that happen to him. A woman who had been a bus driver, and a family wanted to sue a school over claiming that their kids had been molested by bus drivers, and made up a whole story. I mean, like. And she spent a number of years in prison, and you just start seeing all this stuff. And I mean, if that doesn't make you skeptical of any authoritarian type government in any way, because you just realize that with that comes complete, like, whimsical nature of, I mean, it just all comes down to whether you're lucky and who the person is that you're standing in front of, because they can do anything to you. Like that night, those guys, if they had wanted to, could have just beat me to death and said that I had, I mean, they could have. I had no power. And I mean, there's nothing like having had that happen. And then again, I don't want to make myself a victim, because we, at the time when I was on the board, got somebody out of prison. We got him on the Today Show and all this stuff, Ricky Jackson, and sadly this record's now been broken, but he had spent the most years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. He'd been in prison for 37 years. And we got him out. And like the Today Show was there when, filming when he walked out of prison in Cleveland, and all of that. And I think the sad thing is that record's now been broken. And I can just promise you that if all the files were opened up and everything, I mean, there'd be so many people getting freed. It will turn you, even if you believe that somebody who commits murder deserves to die, it will turn you against the death penalty in a second, because you will know that it never has been handed out fairly. It never can be. It never will be. And it's one thing that can never be fixed. The only reason why that guy that we got out, Ricky Jackson, was alive and well, was because, you remember the Supreme Court briefly found the death penalty unconstitutional, the same one that passed Roe versus Wade, I feel like in 73, 72. And then the court in 76 reinstated it and said, they brought it back and said in certain circumstances or whatever. So everybody who had been sentenced to death in that period, when they found it unconstitutional, automatically was transferred over to a life sentence. And this guy, Ricky Jackson, is one of them. He would have been put to death. And there are two others like him who they'd also arrested. He would have been put to death for something he didn't do. So sorry. Again, I made it serious. I don't mean to keep like taking it to the. Let's talk about how fat Elon Musk looked when he was on the yacht at that time.
I got to run because we're doing off childcare, so I got to go deal with the buses and the kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to let you finish off this show solo.
Can you say something funny before you leave, just to so that like I don't.
Funny. I actually cracked a pretty good pun.
Just say Jake Tapper, and you can go, and we're good. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I was gonna cry. My daughter's really into puns these days, and so I said something like, why is it that nobody liked the clam? She's like, the clam? I said, yeah, because the clam was shellfish. And she's like, Dad. My wife was like, no, you can't say clam, you have to say lobster. And I'm like, what's the problem with saying clam? I didn't get that. And so I don't know, maybe somebody can enlighten me on that. But in any case, dad puns.
We're going to work on clam versus lobster while you're gone, David, picking up your kids. And I'm going to make sure I have an answer for you. Because I feel like this is an important part of, if we're going to move forward together doing these shows. I need to understand your feelings on clams. Listen, man. Kira is a saint. Say hi for me.
Yeah, she is. She certainly is. I will say hello for sure.
And go grab your kids. That'll be in a little bit for me. I've got a little more time here. So
all right, I'll see you in a little bit. Thanks to everybody watching.
As always, David, thanks for being here, man. Thanks. Better show with you, bar none. Sorry, guys, you're just stuck with me now. Yeah, laser corn. I know what clam can be a metaphor for. I was trying to stay away from that. Taco, too. We've had a lot of words during this show that can be taken in a dirty sense, but we wouldn't do that because we're wholesome Americans. We're not those liberal commie bastards they claim we are. Except for the part where I want to redistribute all of Elon Musk's wealth, all of it. Actually, I don't, but I'd put an enormous wealth tax on him. I'm a capitalist. I'm just a regulate the living shit out of a capitalist, break up every monopoly capitalist, and that kind of thing. So I don't think anybody needs to have 300 billion, 200 billion, 100 billion, 50 billion. I know need is like the word that they always say, oh, the communists or whatever. But you know what? It's a common good word because society, we all are in this together. We all have common spaces, the public square and all of that. And at some point when people become so wealthy that they're no longer a part of that and they are no longer subject to the same laws and rules of gravity. Well, SpaceX is certainly subject to the rules of gravity, but as the rest of us, then no. They're leeching off society and they're harming it. And that's the Elon Musk phase. I don't know what I would do. I'd have to think about it. Lefty Graham says billionaires should be illegal. I've contemplated that. I missed it. I contemplated that. I don't think anybody does need $1 billion. And so I have thought about that. I think what I would do, Lefty Gramps, if left up to me, is I think when you hit $1 billion of wealth, I would start taking 99 out of every cents out of every dollar that you earn. So, you can keep making more money. So you can get beyond a billionaire. But it's going to be real hard to get from 1 billion to 2 billion. I might start that sooner at 500 million or something. But that's what I mean. That's what's funny is like, I don't know. I refer to myself as a center-left Democrat. I consider myself a pragmatist. I consider myself an adult in a democracy that requires that you don't need to fall in love with whoever the person is that you're going to vote for. In fact, trust me, after you've worked for enough of them, you sometimes have a hard time pulling the lever for some of them. But you vote for the person that better reflects your values and is for democracy and is for the betterment of society and what you believe. And all of that. And so when you take that in there, there are some issues I'm a little bit more moderate on, to be sure. And when I say a little bit more moderate, I don't call myself centrist on most things, but yeah, I'm center left. I do think there are times, especially as a small businessman, that certain small businesses have too many regulations on them, and things like that. I am, there's other examples. I don't need to get into all of it. But I tell you, with like the wealth disparity we're in, how anybody, even if you're a capitalist, as I am, first of all, Teddy Roosevelt talked about monopolies as the death of capitalism. They were the opposite. They were like communism. They killed capitalism. So when you've got only 6 media companies, you kind of understand why our news sucks. And it's similar in other areas. I would break up every fucking monopoly into about 1,000 pieces, start with that, and create a fair, maybe some of those towns would come back where Walmart's destroyed everything because some of the mom and pop shops would be able to compete once I broke up Walmart. But it's funny because the left of the party, I think what you'd call the left, I mean, certainly people refer to AOC as the left and Elizabeth Warren, I think they're just being pragmatic, like AOC saying I think she said a 70% tax on every dollar above 10 million. Well, obviously I absolutely agree with that, but I think I'd go to 80 if I'm being honest with you at this point. I certainly wouldn't stop at saying 70% above 10 million and then just leave it at that, because just the way I've said before, you're not doing badly if you're making $300,000 a year. In fact, you're doing great. You're still not Elon Musk. You should be treated differently, just as you should be treated differently. Like I think that you treat people in what area they're in. Well, you know what? Somebody making $10 million a year isn't the same as like Jeff Bezos, who probably makes like $10 million, what, an hour a day? I don't even know. So as far as I'm concerned, maybe say 70% at 10 million, but I'd raise that sucker up to 80% at 20 million. I'd raise it up to 90% at, whatever. I don't know what I'd do. And again, I get she's being pragmatic, but once you get into an area where we're talking about 8 figures, I would tax the living shit out of it. And the same thing with Elizabeth Warren's, wealth tax. I would absolutely have a serious wealth tax and seriously crack down on anybody trying to avoid that by moving money to foreign banks and foreign assets and that kind of thing. And then, we would go back to what we used to do when conservatives actually even tried to make the argument, where there actually were some people that had some coherent conservative philosophy. Believe it or not, they did exist, and said, wow, well, just the way I will say that anybody who's just given money will become lazy. That would include people who are inheriting vast sums of money. So we're going to have an estate tax, to go back to my friend Teddy Roosevelt again, who I believe was the first one to enact that. I mean, that is exactly, we all know what happens. I'm telling you, every time, that third generation is garbage. It's like the first generation makes the money, second generation often keeps it going. And by the third generation, they're just sort of like, I don't need to do anything. Just collect my checks. And they're usually given a job somewhere that they don't qualify for. And, we know how all of that goes. So, I would have a massive inheritance tax. It doesn't mean I think you should be able to leave some money you've earned it throughout your life. So I'm not claiming, it should be, but I mean, if you have $1 billion, I'd probably put a 90% inheritance tax on it. I mean, it's gonna be real tough for your children to get by with 100 million, huh? Maybe I'd put a 95% on it. So there you go. I guess I'm a communist or something. I'm really not. Again, the thing is about capitalism is when it's untrammeled capitalism, and when there's no limits, when you can create Elon Musks and you create weird, creepy, like Jeff Bezos, who just used to look like a dork that you saw hanging out actually at a bookstore often, who didn't understand that it looked really bad when you had a lot of hair over here and none up here. Suddenly became the shaved head Bond villain with the weird glasses and like the cyborg for a girlfriend, who I'm not sure if she started out with any of the parts she currently has. And the guys get the fake boob implants. I think he's done that, Bezos. He looks like he has. I don't believe he's lifted weights for that. That's creepy. And they're weird people. They become weird people because, again, they're detached from the public good, from society. So, again, I'm an uber capitalist. I believe that when it's still about innovation, and it's still about, hey, if I work somewhat harder, or I come up with a crafty idea, like I love what I'm doing with Substack right now, trying to be creative about it. And I love what I do with this live stream and other stuff. These are businesses, and they're not just businesses, obviously, to make money. I do them because I'm passionate about it. But I get to think of ways to be creative and interesting, and maybe this will help the bottom line a little bit more. Maybe that will make it a little so people enjoy it more. Like there's something very cool about that. But again, there's an absurd level people reach, and those absurd levels, all they do is undermine capitalism for everybody else. And I didn't expect to get off on that today, but what the hell, I did. What else we got, friends and family? Ooh, somebody had something about Portugal here. No one in this country should be homeless or hungry, and education should be free. I agree with that. And honestly, Jay, who said that here, we could do all of that just with our defense budget. I mean, we could add taxes to someone like Elon Musk, whatever, and do it too. But we spend what, towards $1 trillion on defense? What is it? How many of the next countries combined are we? The next 8 combined, or whatever the hell it is? I don't know. We don't need to do that. It's defense contractors. It's everything that Eisenhower warned about. You take that money. In fact, Eisenhower had a quote on that, which is that every dollar you put in the bombs in the end is one less child fed or educated, or something of that nature. It's amazing. Some of the stuff Eisenhower said back then would sound so left wing today. And so, yeah, cut the defense budget in half, and not just randomly in half. I'm not Elon Musk and Doge, where you go in a place, you're like, cut 20%, who cares? No, you find the actual inefficiencies. You don't do it randomly, and there's plenty of them. And the places that are producing stuff we don't need because the defense contractors, lobbyists got in there. Do that. Cut subsidies to pharma. Jesus Christ. I mean, they make enough money. I know we need to give them certain ones when it comes to risk they take on vaccines and stuff. That I'm fine with. Other things where they're going to profit usually, and things of that nature, you cut some of that stuff. Hell, cut the subsidies that go to Elon Musk. So let's start with that. And defense, and then you raise taxes like we did. I mean, there would be no homeless. There would be no. Thank you for that, Jim, for reminding everybody, my friends at Twitch and my friends at Patreon and YouTube and all the fun spots. Please subscribe. That's how I get to keep doing this. You know, we just, as I said, we just passed 120,000 on YouTube. YouTube noticed, maybe, or maybe I've made better videos lately, but we're getting more views, and then I can make a little bit more money, and then I can do more of this. That's how it all works. Same thing with Substack. We're really growing. Obviously, we have a huge platform of subscribers, which is amazing because I did a 12-hour live stream that went kind of viral. So we've got 560 something thousand subscribers, which is incredible. But I didn't for a while, really push the paid subscription thing. I've only been on there for 2 months, and I finally have started doing that now. We're growing in that area, and I want to be able to hire David to do more things. Emmy Award winners don't grow on trees, There's a few other folks like that too. And when you get the funds where you can pay them, you can actually provide people with a real product. I'll let you in on a hint. I am going to do my best with the Substack head start I got because of that huge account to promote other creators. I think I've talked about this. I'm going to start an initiative. I'll be talking about it more soon. Probably even trying to raise some funds. And certainly using the luck I have of having this huge account there to when I send out a newsletter and 400,000 or something people open it, like I want to make sure that I'm talking about people that are brilliant and great and fantastic who just haven't had that luck, and they should be known. Their voices should be known. I'm really tired of talking the talk. And I've always done my best. If one were to look at that 12-hour live stream, I'll just say, I got a rock star on there because I've known Phil Collin, the guitarist for Def Leppard, because he's a climate guy, and we met on a show, and he's awesome. And I got lucky, and he came on and was even playing a couple bars from Pour Some Sugar on Me, and that was freaking cool. Okay. And Bill Corbett, Mystery Science Theater 3000, producer, voice, whatever. And then, some folks like Brian Karam and Hal Sparks and Heather Cox Richardson. And, that was all awesome, awesome too. But if you were to look in there, you'd probably find up to half a dozen folks who had 1,000, 2,000, or 100, 500 or fewer subscribers on Substack because they're my friends. I like them. They produce brilliant stuff, and we're all supposed to actually be there for each other. Everybody talks about creating this progressive ecosystem. Well, I'm going to do it, and I can't do it like a billionaire because I'm not. But what I can do is raise funds for it, which I'm trying to do. And what I can do is put some of the money that we raise through our paid subscriptions to it, which I'm going to do. And what I can do is when I put out newsletters and put out columns and other things, link to people, give guest columns to people, not just so I give a guest column to somebody who has 200,000 subscribers, so I'll get some new ones. But how about somebody who has, 2,500 subscribers or 1,200 subscribers or whatever it might be, so that they're seen by more people. I just feel like we all should do more of that. And we talk about creating this ecosystem. I'm not going to get into casting aspersions right now. I'll let you all imagine, and I'm sure some of you can figure out what I'm talking about, but there are people who, on the left side of the spectrum, to the left of center, who talk a great game about how, we beat because we don't have the media. Nope, we don't. We don't have the ecosystem to reach people we need to on the left. Nope, we don't. And all that. And then, but hey, just, keep giving me new ways to make money. When I do my shows, I'm only going to invite on people that are really, really big and have already made it. I'm not going to invite on anybody smaller. I'm not going to promote anybody smaller because I'm too good for that. And how the hell does that fix things? So we've got 20, 30, 50 big voices, and we don't have that ecosystem filled out by 5,000 more people that should be out there. whether they have 100,000 or not. Like, even if they've got 20,000, even if they start off with 3,000, but you get them to 5, they have a bigger impact. That's what this is about, that some people don't get. When I get people giving me, shit about, like, and I inevitably always get one of these answers to my piece I wrote, like, well, it's great that you wrote about it, so why don't you go out and do something about it? And I'm like, well, you see, I'm not in Congress. I go to marches, I go to protests, I write, I make videos, I do what I can, what's in my skill set. I give advice on messaging. I'd argue with somebody that wrote speeches for a guy that won the presidency, that maybe I know messaging okay. I do what I can to help out there, but like, why don't you go out there and do it? Well, that is something that we've needed more people to do, and they're not. So soon I will be talking to you more about this. It's a big kind of initiative. I'm working with other folks that we're trying to put together, but we need an ecosystem. That whole thing on the right, it's not just, there's some that are just partisan garbage, your Charlie Kirks and Fox and whatever. And then there's some, like him or not, that aren't. Joe Rogan is not. I don't like Joe Rogan. I don't agree with a lot of what he has to say, but he reaches a lot of people, and he kind of just says what he thinks. And the thing is, he kind of thinks what the average uninformed American thinks. So he does. So on some issues, he's criticized Trump lately. On some issues, he comes out more to the left. On others, a lot, he comes out more to the right. But the point is we need more figures, not a Joe Rogan, which I know is a big obsession now on the left. I'm talking about a whole bunch of people that can reach beyond politics, that can talk about sports and talk about music and talk about other things, and fit politics into the conversation, and and reach people where they are. It's really not that hard. I think we overthink it a lot. We overthink everything on the left, and we over focus group and over whatever, instead of just being authentic. I don't come here, I promise you, I don't pull test what I say here. You're getting the real me, for better or worse. And we need that from people, a lot more people. And we do have some prepackaged, like, folks who just seem to want to talk about the records they're breaking and the accounts they're growing and how great they are. And it's like, maybe look around. I'm going to do a lot of it on Substack for a very important reason. Substack lowers the barrier to entry, why I've liked it so much, which means I know as somebody who's run an email fundraising business, you got to store your emails somewhere. That's expensive. You have to have people that set up your emails to be sent to go out. That's expensive. And sometimes you have to try to set things up so video properly goes in them. Well, that's expensive. Creating the videos, editing, whatever. Substack does most of that for you. I can embed a video into anything I send out, and I've got a platform where I can write on, and that will send it out to the email list I have and all of that. So it lessens the need for wealthy Democrats to give money, because you've already got somewhat of a system set up for you, which is important. And so that's why it's been so important to me. And then I kind of hit the lottery. There you go. You don't like my music. That's what I want, by the way. This is what I want. I don't need to agree with you. On everything, Cliff, but you were honest and want a proper discussion. That's all I ever try to get across. Again, like, I have this weird thing where I'm not like the Donald Trumps and the Elon Musks of the world and whatever. Like, when I'm wrong, if I conclude I'm wrong, I admit I'm wrong. Sometimes I don't. And so I'll argue with you to the end about it. But, like, you're getting me. Again, for better or worse. This is what I think from my lived experience, from my life, from my experiences, from everything I've seen, from, I've traveled a ton when I was younger, and grad and undergrad and stuff like that, not at 5-star hotels. One time when I was in Thailand with a roommate, a friend of mine from grad school, when we were traveling, the sink broke out of the wall, and I sort of a scene out of a horror movie. Like, it's like when in the movie The Birds, if you ever saw, where they're like, wow, different birds hang out with each other, which they normally don't. So they knew there's like some radioactive whatever. Well, I don't know what the deal is with bugs. So if anybody here is a bug expert, you can tell me. But like hundreds of bugs poured out of this wall. It was like the Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom scene. like all together. I'm like, oh my God, we're getting the fuck out of this room. So I just don't want to give you the impression when I say I've traveled a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I'm staying on the 5-star circuit. I can afford better places to stay now where bugs don't come out of the wall, but not back then. So yeah, everyone makes mistakes. Even I believe Trump's lies. Chiara Fortuna. Yeah, well, and that's why. Look, I believe it's a triage system, which is there are the MAGA folks who are a lost cause. We know who they are, right? They're the ones dancing around in Trump diapers. I mean, I'm serious. If you've seen those videos, like golden Trump diapers and stuff and whatever, they're gone. There are, there are sort of another level that you don't, who are really don't you have to do much with. They were sort of Trump light. They voted for him because we failed in messaging. They got enough propaganda that they thought, well, I don't like Trump. He's obnoxious, whatever. But, I don't know about Kamala. I've heard these things and this and that. People need to better reach, but they now have lost their jobs and their 401ks and they're with us. And then of this triage was an in-between group that has become somewhat soured on Trump, but doesn't yet know. And that's who we need. That's who we should be trying to reach. You don't waste your time with the 25% of people to 30%, maybe even 33. They're just going to remain nuts and will never, ever admit they're wrong and never leave. But again, Trump got, which is sickening in the end, 49 point something percent of the vote. If you assume 33% are gone, that's 16%. That's 1/6 of society you have a shot at turning, and as I said, some of them will on their own. So you probably don't even need to go after all of them because some are on the other side of the triage, and they're already were with us and shocked by what they've done. Some of them made videos and like, I screwed up. But maybe if it's still 12% or whatever it is, whatever the number is, those are the people you need to be talking to. And you need to be understanding and you need to accept they're not going to agree with you on everything and that they're not going to use every PC term and you don't have to agree with them on every issue. Okay? I have litmus test issues when it comes to like getting out and putting money behind and really getting behind a candidate. As I told you, though, I'm a mature human in a democracy. There's always a lesser of two evils. And when it comes to people voting, you can disagree, even if they're conservative. I mean, I'm somebody who worked on gun safety forever. I don't care if they're against all gun safety whatsoever. If they're willing to vote for a Democrat over the Republicans, particularly over Trump, over, Vivek Ramaswamy, that ding-dong pencil neck loser running for governor here, I will bring them into the fold if I can. Okay? Because we need to win. And I hope you're all with me on that. Lefty Gramps, I know so many racists in Ohio that don't even know they're racist. Well, you're correct, but that's all over the country. We're not unique there. But I'll never forget in 2008, they actually did an article for once that I found useful. I don't remember, it was the Times, the Post, on like racists for Obama. And when the economy crashed, when it did, there honestly was a person, and they still would actually say this back then and use it, which makes me sick, but a person who used the N-word in the article who said, we're voting for the N-word, and voted for, probably, I think he and his wife voted for Obama. Now, I'm not going to talk to somebody like that. I do have places where I draw the line. But again, there are people out there who are not going to agree with us on certain stuff, that are going to say subtly racist things, subtly sexist things, anti-Semitic things, and anti-gay things, whatever. And I'm just saying, at some point, you have to decide, like, is that more important to me than my children growing up in a democracy? Is that more important than us having the freedoms that we need? Because in the end, even if they disagree with you on some of the issues I mentioned, if we win, our issues will win. So if they're so disenchanted with Trump, don't judge them if they're willing to vote with us. Don't argue with them. Don't bring them into the coalition. That's what I would say to you. What else, my friends? What else? I have to plug once more, so you should know. Again, if you can go over to blueamp.co, I'll put it in here. And you are willing to get a paid subscription for the low price of $1.32 a week to our Substack. That will get it to a higher position where we get above 1,000 paid subscribers. They give us a nice new check mark. They promote us more. And then I start being able to increase my fundraising more and give more funds to some other independent creators, which is the plan. So I ask you to please do that. I ask you also to consider Patreon. Jim put up earlier. I've fallen down on my Patreon duties. I'm going to make you guys a video today. I should, for my paid Patreon folks, be making more videos, and I apologize. I really appreciate that you all support me there. I'm also going to give all of you, if you want to, I'll reach out to you all via email, which I have, and you will get a massive discount, if not, and almost as much as Substack will allow me to make, if you wanted to join their paid, because you're already supporting me. And the YouTube thing is free. If anybody here is not a subscriber at Cliff's Edge, you know, the more subscribers, the better I do. Better I do, more of these things I do. It's all, you know, and I can try to put this ecosystem we dream of into action. So that's pretty much it. So please support what we're doing. I have to say right now that I think we're heading towards the end. Tomorrow's live stream, Jim, always there. Happy birthday, Jim. Who didn't, you know, I didn't get Jim a birthday present, but damn it, I'm going to have to now. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm going to have to. Jim's getting a birthday present of something cool. Substack member here, Stephanie. Look at that. Stephanie can tell you. It's awesome. You know, Jim had that up. I want to just put that up, and I'm going to take down what you kindly put up there, Stephanie. I'll get that back up in a little bit if I'm here. But tomorrow we've got at least one amazing guest in Brian Karam, who is joining us. As you may know, he was written a number of books, won a number of awards, has a column at salon.com right now. And he was the guy that asked Trump the question about whether he would respect the results of the 2020 election, and ended up making it into Jack Smith's court filing. He's been very important. Was the last White House correspondent for Playboy magazine. That's something you want on your epitaph. And then in addition, there's one or two other folks I'm talking to. So we may do a half hour each who may join. So we will see. But you at least will get Brian 2 to 3 o'clock. It's called Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. It's a live stream. They gave me my own branded show because they're very kind. It's a live stream through only through Substack. So you got to get there and subscribe and everything, and you can watch. And I think I'd argue, folks here would argue for the quality of it. I co-hosted with David. We have some great people on. We had Joe Walsh on. We had Greg Oliar on. We had Hal Sparks, Julian Zelizer. If I really want to entice you, I'll tell you some of the folks I have already booked in the coming weeks coming up. Not tomorrow, but I believe it's in a week. I've got Shannon Watts coming on, brilliant founder of Moms Demand Action. I have Joyce Vance, brilliant lawyer, MSNBC contributor, I believe still on legal issues or whatever, coming on. And I have scholar of fascism, it feels like the right time to do it, Ruth Ben-Ghiat coming on. So those are 3 that are booked in the coming weeks. So I would love it if you guys would join me there. And that, my friends, I think is all I got. So who's coming with me? Who's coming with me? I just need a few good vibes to walk out the door. You guys know what that means, right? It's my time to do Jerry Maguire, even like $1.99 super sticker, 99 cents one. Hey, I just joined your Substack. Anything like that. And it is always the way that puts a bounce in my step that I love, walking out the door. So if any of you have it in you to even search and find 99 cents that you found on the sofa, or, $1.99 or whatever, that would be their good show. Cliff Lefty Gramps, thank you, with a $5 super chat. I really appreciate it, my friend. And he is also a Substack subscriber, paid. So that is very generous of Lefty Gramps. I don't know. I haven't seen Devin today. Devin always jumps in. He's awesome. My friend, Mr. McAndrews sometimes, and some of you other folks. Oh, there's Sheldon. I don't know why I haven't seen you, Sheldon. Thank you. One more. How about that? One more. Anything. Super chat, super sticker, anything. That's all I need. Just one more, man. Just one more. Or I have to take the goldfish with me. Are you going to make me do that? Are you guys going to really make me do that? And again, I should point out Sheldon Hughes, $5 super chat before, because Sheldon is a huge supporter. Lefty Gramps, same thing. $5 super chat. Sheldon Hughes again for a $2 super chat. And I have Mr. Andrew. I had more yesterday. Everybody wants money. I know, and I hate asking for it. Hopefully soon all of that stuff will be taken care of. The subscriptions are going up, thankfully, at Substack, and maybe we'll get to a point where I don't even have to do this anymore. But you know what? It actually is nice to walk out of here. As I said, I mean, you all gave $3.33, $5, $2, but I meant it when I said 99 cents would do it. I think that's the cheapest they let you give, right? Hell, they let you give cheaper. Something so you walk out with a good feeling and you're just like, I just did that, and there are people that appreciate it and supported it. It's just it's a nice way to head out. All right. Substack, Amped Up with Cliff Schechter, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Be there, or be square, or some other obscene rhyme. I hope to catch you guys there. I thank you so much for being here, for supporting me, and being a part of we'll call it Cliff's Edge, live stream here related to my YouTube. And tomorrow it's the Blue Amp one related to my Substack. Have a great afternoon and evening. I'm not here tomorrow, Starlene, but I am on Substack, and you do not have to be a paid subscriber. You can, as long as you subscribe to me, you can watch me there. Naomi Lou Fried, thank you. Thank you to you too. If I missed anybody else, Polygraph Lie Detector, nice. I like that. Thanks, Cliff and Chad. Thanks, Cliff and Chad. Awesome. And Jim, I just saw you a second ago. Sheldon's getting his granddaughter from school. I got to get people from school, so now seems like a time. Happy birthday, Jim. Thank you all for supporting me. And as you know, as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.